Have all hands on deck, especially as we try to put minds together to see how best the 2026 general election can be conducted violence-free and where human rights of all Ugandans can be observed. There's already some flashes of violence, flashes of some people's rights being trodden upon. We also have concerns that are rising, especially within the security forces, high-handedness, selective application of the law. All that is going to be playing out. But whose responsibility is it to ensure that at the end of the day, calm and order reign, especially as Ugandans go into a very critical phase of the country's politics? With me in the studio, I have Sarah Bireete. She is the Executive Director at the Center for Constitutional Governance. I'm also joined by retired Major Pollar Awich. He is the Director External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement. And on my extreme left, I have aspiring Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality. He's also a lawyer with the Opposition National Unity Platform. I don't know whether he represents NUP or is a NUP honcho. That is something that he can always talk about. Gentlemen and lady, you are most welcome to Morning at 10 TV this 14th day of July 2025. How are you?
We are good, thanks, and
we greet the viewers.
The Major is good.
Yes, I'm good, but I want to talk about your mentioning about his position of a lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, if you mention his profession, I would wish you also mention mine.
I would also ask that you mention
even Sarah as well. I'm also a lawyer, I'm an advocate. You know why I take it serious is because there are some propaganda which had been peddled that in NRM...
There are no lawyers?
No, that you don't have brains. That even those who have brains before you join, they do a surgery and remove it, and you leave it at the gate. Wow. No, we have brains, we are lawyers, and we are disciplined. Okay. So when you mention this profession, you should also know I am an advocate, in fact, senior to him. Okay. I'm an advocate of the High Court, and so that there's no misrepresentation of underrepresentation.
From NRM.
From NRM.
I thought ex-military was something
and
that
neither
would be
from civil society.
A retired major.
And a lawyer.
And a lawyer. Yes. Lovely. Are you
of course
a lawyer?
Of course.
Are you something else away from that? I need to capture everything.
Yeah, but no, we are all lawyers. So that pulls out to just say all of them are lawyers and the specialists on human rights. I think that solves the question.
I'm honored
well
to be talking to distinguished minds. I'm not a lawyer.
Chris, one of the proponents of the argument that Major Awich is saying that in NRM people don't have brains is now working for NRM, the Minister of Justice. There's a video clip where he said, you know, when you're working for Mr. Museveni, you are used as a wheelbarrow.
Musisi, you've usurped me on that one.
But of course,
please.
Good morning to the viewers. A pleasure to be here, Chris, as always, to meet Sarah, my sister, and my colleague. My learned colleagues, for avoidance of doubt. And Major, which is one of the few retired majors who is not running for election. And many of his retired colleagues have posters all over in the NRM primaries.
I'm a referee now. I'm a director and I'm now a referee.
I'm now a referee. Let me just capitalize on that. The fact that he says you're one of those that are not running. Talk to us about contentment and retirement. Why is it that so many of the older persons within our political space don't seem to fathom retirement as something that can be undertaken? I didn't want to say zero in on NRM alone.
I see the retirement you're talking about is in two contexts. First, in the general context of retirement, and I will also take it, the retirement, say, from the army. Now, if I start from the army or other professions, is that ideally the retirement terms is public service 60 years, or if you wish before that, voluntary. But in the army, the retirement is according to terms and conditions by rank. Not everybody retires the same age. In other words, in the army, the higher the rank, the higher the retirement age. For reason that if you are lower rank, say lieutenant, and you're expected to run with 45 people in the bush as a platoon commander, you need a younger age. So if you're 60 and you're still a lieutenant, then you can't run. But if you're a general and you're in a war room, possibly seeing move that brigade from that bridge, take it to that district, you are commanding on a map, then advanced age is good. So the higher the rank, the higher the retirement. So therefore, many people who have retired in the army, they have just left the army, but they're still competent in other areas. And also experience has had that the most of the soldiers who have served in the army have already got so used to the philosophy of NRM, so they want to serve in another places. That is why you see so many army officers retiring and going to serve. Just because they are not old in the sense, but they have reached that terms and condition age. Now, for the other wider time that you say that
The transition.
people don't seem to, in your term, that people don't seem to take it with it. In other words, you're saying people are not eager.
They're not eager
to retire. That one also can be taken from two perspectives. One, there are some retirement where people have urged the retirement bearer, the person who holds the right to retire, to stay. The case in point is that of President Museveni, for the fact that some of us have urged him to stay. So you take that retirement, that it is not a holding on by his wish, but it's a holding on by some people. So we really believe so, genuinely. Captive? So genuinely we have held him to say, please serve more. But if there are other elements of people who you think should have retired but are not, then that is on a case-by-case basis. But majority is that, or in the case of Museveni in particular, that I'm sure about because I'm privy to that, is that his retirement would have come, but some of us are saying we still need him a little bit. So his voluntary retirement is therefore subject to the will of those who are asking, and we are there to ask, and we have asked.
Wow, it's not every day that you interact with retired Major Pollar Awich. That is a context that needs to be studied a little bit more. Well, let's just delve into the discussion straight, especially with regard to what's happening in the election cycle. There is increasing violence, increasing tension. Let's first ask the man who is in the thick of it. You are running in an election, and violence has been cited across the country. It's not that we don't know of any incidents within Kira municipality. How are you managing this, especially when it comes to coordination between the security agencies, the candidates, and all other stakeholders to ensure a calm, violence-free election?
Chris, almost all the post-1995 elections we've had, they've been marred by violence. In fact, I remember in 2001, a Human Rights Watch report said over 100 people were killed by state security agencies or state-related. That was the election of which had Kalangal Action Plan, if you remember right. If you fast forward to the last election, 2021, we lost over 100 people. The government report said 54 people were shot on the streets of Kampala by stray bullets. And the same government report said only 11 of the 54 were actually active rioters. That means the others were innocent bystanders. When you come to the election that we are already engaging in, because an election is a process, we've already seen skirmishes of violence. We saw a death in Zimbabwe by still a bullet. The other day I saw in Kasambia a bullet-related injury and so on and so forth. So there is the common denominator in all the violations, in all the violence that you're talking about, are security agencies. And ironically, they are the same people who are supposed to be at the forefront of defending the citizenry. So the big elephant in the room is who will rein in security agencies from violating Ugandans, because there seems to be a growing culture of impunity, which comes at a highest crescendo during the elections. And when you say how are you doing to manage, because it's not violence amongst different supporters of different groups. That would be easier to solve, because then the state would come in. But what happens, and the question to all Ugandans is, how do you deal with state-inspired and sponsored violence? Because all the violations we are seeing where the security agencies take an active role in the conflict, in the electoral conflict, where maybe they support one candidate, like we've seen in Zimbabwe, and up to now, just like the deaths of 2020 November, we've not seen any person held responsible on the death of which happened in Zimbabwe. We've not seen any person being charged. Just like we've not seen any person being charged with the death of the 54 Ugandans. So the biggest dilemma is that we are having state sponsored violence by security agencies, where they have taken an active role, sometimes in internal party politics, like in NRM, where they're supporting different candidates, like you see in Zimbabwe, because those are internal party politics of NRM. But then, when it comes to the bigger general election, this time the guns are turned against the opposition. And that is the catch for everyone.
Allow me to stay with you very shortly on account of your association with the National Unity Platform, an opposition party that has often been classified by the security forces as harboring violent gangs, commonly known as a gali these days. Within that stead, isn't it incumbent upon the National Unity Platform or anybody who aligns with it to look at measures that help put in place the means that do not foment violence, for that matter? NUP youth have been accused severally of throwing stones and pelting. And that accusation has been on for a while. But the leaders often fail to come out to explicitly talk about or even condemn that violence.
I think any person who looks at it with those lenses is a person who would blame a rape victim for wearing an indecent dress. Why? Let us look at the last election, and I'm going to bring you up to 2025. Over 500 youths, almost all of them NUP linked, were arraigned before court martials for different charges, wearing a t-shirt, wearing this, some being found with arms, what. None of them was ever went through a full trial to say that the state brought evidence and prosecuted. Even in civil courts, by the way. And if there is any person who is committing a crime, let the person be charged. If you are saying that those youth who are throwing stones, charge them, prosecute the case through a fair trial, and convict them. Where are the people who have been charged with that? Where are the convictions? To the contrary, what has been happening, we saw in front of the media in the last election in Kawempe, where even a nominated candidate was brutally arrested in front of the cameras. You saw the people who were brutalized in front of the offices, still in the Kawempe election, who were badly brutalized by JAT officers. Were there any stones being thrown? So the question is, let us not look at one side in exception of the other. Meanwhile, we should know that the security agencies are supposed to uphold the law. Since we have all learned colleagues here, we know that when security agencies are using force, the force should be proportionate to the threat you are facing. In fact, I remember one time General Aronda told the IGP then, Kaihura, that if people are throwing stones at you, why does police shoot bullets? You should also get stones. But of course, the bigger issue is that the force should be proportionate. But where are those stone throwing people? Where have they been charged? And who says that if a person throws a stone at you, you should shoot them? Because that's an extrajudicial killing. How comes the cameras have not didn't capture that in Kawempe? Even you, journalists, didn't you throw any stones before you were brutalized? No. So the question, that is just always escapist. That is always an escapist argument. The issue should be, let us hold whoever that commits a crime, whether it's security or NUP-related or otherwise, to account.
All right. That one got me on an uncomfortable position where we cannot and we can never throw stones as journalists. We only train cameras or the people. Sarah Bireete, is violence the DNA of our politics?
Yes, under the NRM regime. even the 1996 elections, where President Museveni got the most popular vote and maybe the only genuine popular vote, there was violence. The late Dr. Paul Kawanga Semogere was stoned in Rukunjiri, where he had about 10 multi-party supporters then. But the NRM got on the streets, threw stones, beat up the people and broke a rally of very few supporters of the inter-party cooperation then. So when NRM, in the LSA elections also in Kampala before 1996, there was violence in Kampala areas. So it shows that whenever NRM is challenged or faced with competition, they resort to violence. Because in the LC elections of lining up, the NRM was unpopular in Kampala metropolitan areas. It is still unpopular in the same area. There was violence. In Rukunjiri, where there were few supporters of Kawanga, NRM was very popular then. There was violence. 2001, when Dr. Besigye mounted challenge, being an internal, also NRM liberator, high levels of violence that led to death of people in CMI custody, the late Manene and others. Out of election violence, 2006, I think that's where even people were shot. I don't know, the Balange shot?
Yes, 2006.
Yes. So you can see it's a trend of increasing violence. And in 2021, where it's alleged, because Nupu said they should have won that election, you see that the more the challenge, the higher the violence. And going by the trend, for us from the civic actors' perspective, we expect more violence, even drawing from Kawempe as a baseline, where everybody, including harmless journalists with cameras, were all corroborated, rounded up, arrested, beaten. I think your colleague spent about 3 weeks in hospital. So you can see that the NRM has no competition element in their DNA. They resort to arms, the arms that brought them to power in the first place. They are still the same character.
We have an NRM honcho with us here. Submit and respond to Sarah Bireete's claims, but also talk to us about the bold litmus test that the National Resistance Movement primaries have given the country, especially when it comes to the amount of violence, the tension, and the near do or die, especially when you look at events in Kasanda, events in Zimbabwe. It's like we've been given a bit of what we should look out for as we prepare for 2026. All courtesy of the National Resistance Movement.
Okay, I don't know whether I start the easy one. Okay, I don't know whether I start the easy one, the NRM test, as you say. Then I go to Sarah's issue. Now, the NRM one is arising out of a situation like, for us in the party, you want to solve a problem, and you solve the problem. But when you solve that problem, it creates another problem. For example, you want to industrialize. You build factories, but you create a problem of pollution. So are you going to run away from building factories because you fear pollution? You build factories, create the pollution, you deal with pollution later. In Langis, there's a saying, you don't fear planting cassava because pear grass is there. Mogupe or beer, you plant and harvest. Now, in this case, we want the numbers in the party. We do all we can to bring members in the party, and we have extended the members of the party. The problem you create there is a challenge of internal democracy. So we are not going to shy away from recruiting more members to join the party because internal democracy is challenging. It is a sweet challenge. So therefore, what is happening is that we have recruited, we have popularized the party, and the NRM is big, and we are faced with challenge of internal democracy. Our constitution and regulations addresses. But if we find it is inadequate, we shall strengthen it. But it is not to say, as a party, we promote or we love violence. Not at all. I am sure many parties, instead of us having a problem of a challenge of popularity and managing internal party, there are some parties who are going to beg people, can you kindly hold for us this flag? Can you help us to get the flag? But on the contrary, for us, people are fighting and death is occurring. That's a sign of popularity. Oh. So we are going to manage the internal democracy by strengthening our constitution if need be, but also strengthening the regulations. But it is a worry that it's a challenge in internal democracy. Now, on the question of the fairness and the violence in election, even in the choice of words, in the diction, in whatever law that you have, whether it was in the constitution or even the subsidiary laws, when you talk of election, you say free and fair. Because it is a social phenomenon that is difficult to have it fixed. And that is why in the United States, President Trump is shot in a rally. In the United States, President Trump is shot in a rally. So election is always free and fair. But I like to say that in this kind of election that we have the rights holders and the potential rights violators. And I like to say, in the case of violence, NRM is a big victim. Did you know that? Did you know that we're a big victim in election violence?
Tell us how.
What?
I don't know.
If you want, I can tell you this. My land brother, we leave this studio. I give you NRM t-shirt and cap. You give me Noop t-shirt and cap. We walk in Wandegea, and we see who will be attacked first.
But your office is close to Wandegea. You've been wearing yellow for a month. How many people have been attacked?
In a what? That slum down that you like is called what? In the Kamucha. If you have two people walking freely in Wandegea, I give him the t-shirt for NRM and a cap. He gives me Noop. He will be attacked before. Therefore,
what do you mean? Verbal attack?
Even physical.
No.
Physical. Let me tell you this.
That is a lie. We haven't seen such incidents.
I will do. You haven't seen?
No.
It is on record that a woman who was wearing yellow was stripped naked, and the video went viral because she was putting on yellow.
After killings in Kampala.
Okay. 2, a police officer was drilled a nail in the head just because he's a state agent.
When was
in
that?
Kiseka. Colleagues, what I'm saying here is that there are rights holders and everybody is a right holder. NRM is a right holder, Noop is a right holder, even security agencies are right holders. And potential violators can be a state agent, can even be NRM members or Noop members. Therefore, the issue of violence, the issue of violations should be tackled concretely, without biases, without saying the DNA lies in another. If we do that, then we're going to exclude potential violators as we have seen it. So for us as a party who is in power, we would call upon the government that we set, because the ruling party forms a government, and there's going to be no vacuum until the next government is formed. So we will still insist that government should maintain law and order. I don't know whether the Minister for Constitutional Affairs or Justice and Constitutional will be a candidate. If he will be a candidate, then it will be in his best interest that justice prevail during this time, because he will be a candidate, but he will also be a minister. So therefore, the issue of violations, we should see it from the context of who are the right holders. All of us are right holders, including you. Right from what? Freedom from assault, freedom from torture.
That is right.
Freedom of speech. So it is only until we know that all of us are right holders in this process, and the potential and suspect of violations are known, that we shall tackle it squarely, instead of apportioning blame and saying it is an NRM thing. No.
Major Awich, do you know that the National Resistance Movement holds a great advantage when it comes to the use of military services in elections? First, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
To the extent that even within the primaries of the National Resistance Movement alone, the military has a huge role that it's playing already on account of being able to be used by the powerful against the less powerful.
That one is not within my knowledge. But first, the first one, which I considered
now that it
yes.
is.
The one that I considered to a yes. Part of why the NRM has a big say in the state machinery is first and foremost, we are the existing government.
Exploits the advantage.
We are the existing government. We appoint even Minister of Defense, and the military is a subset under Minister of Defense. That one we have. Two, also know that there has been a debate of the egg and the hen. Which one came first? Is it the egg or is it the hen? In the case of NRM and NRA, who came first? NRA, of course, transitioned to UPDF. But it is clear, it is not which one came first. The mere thinking, the ideology that President Museveni thought that we have to fight, that ideology is NRM. The forces that attack Kabamba is NRA. Therefore, you can see that historically the army feels aligned to NRM. So I concede we have a say. We are the existing government. Historically, the army is formed by us.
So you'll be inclined to
no, but for us as a party, ruling party, and we are going for election with our structure as a secretariat and our chairman as President Museveni and the organ as SEC, we are doing our polity, and we would request that the army poses under the law, because the law says the police can call on the army. It is only during election, it is police which will call the army for reinforcement. But the way we are doing it as a party, even when we have these allies or people who think who think they're associated to us, we really request them to watch and see, because we are very safe. Wow. We are very safe. We have done our politics. We have made the manifesto implementation and everything, and people are with us. So there's no worry even to call the army, because it will compete us.
The Kickstarter today is to find solutions and see what particular areas can be clogged in order to lessen the incidence of violence in an election. Mr. Musisi.
Just a couple of things I want to debunk from Major's assertions. One, he says violence is a sign of popularity. That is not true.
Did I say that?
You said that because they're fighting for the some parties.
I said it's a challenge of managing internal democracy.
All right.
So that also is not true, because the violence we are seeing has a pattern. The pattern is that it would be violence as an internal contradiction if it was a violence between supporters, but it's violence by the state on people, on civilians. So that's the pattern. Well, you talk about President Trump's shooting. President Trump's shooting was not by security agents. It was by a private citizen. And you know, many people want to misuse the context by referring to incidents in the US. You know, there's racism, you know, there's police brutality. The question is, every society has bad-mannered people. The difference, how does state respond? That's the issue of the state to those people who commit crimes. Major talks about rights holders. The other side of the rights holders issue are duty bearers. The state is the principal duty bearer to hold everyone to account who has committed violence. My office is about half a kilometer away from the NRM Tango Doi's office. And for the last 1 month, we've been having hordes of people dressed in yellow. I don't think the media has even captured one person.
Stone them.
And it's about 1 kilometer from Wandege that is talking about. No one has been stoned, not even one, for the last 1 month. So it's not true. But let us assume one was stoned. You hold that person to account. Just like we would wish you to hold the people, the security agents who commit violence on people, to account. The question is, we are seeing a duty bearer who has failed in their duty, and by the state not holding security agencies who commit violations to account, they are making a tacit condonation, and that's why that impunity has continued. In fact, security agencies think if you are doing that, if you are committing a violation, a crime on the behalf of the state or a bigger authority, it could not be the state per se, like in the case of Zimbabwe, it was a bigger a retired colleague of his, they think that you can go with it. That's why we're even having the army put a DPC in her office at gunpoint. We've reached such levels.
Interesting there. Sarah Bireete, your work within the civic space has become increasingly hard, especially on account of developments that are down to funding. I don't know whether Ugandans are simply not sensitized enough, especially those that instigate violence against themselves. Musisi does have an issue with the violence by the state to the people, but we also have violence between, you know, Ugandans, and those incidents are also reported across the country. Where is the civil society? What are you doing?
Yeah, just to answer a bit on the people who wear yellow being stoned, Councillor Musisi has answered that for the last 1 month, people have been coming to NRM headquarters in convoys of yellow. None of them has been attacked, and that's near Wandegea. Their office is just a few minutes away from Wandegea. None of their members has been attacked. If you look at the PDM tours by the president, although it's an element of abuse, I don't know why all PDM beneficiaries must wear yellow, including children in oversized t-shirts. This is a national program, taxpayers program. Why are they, you know, vulgarizing it as a party program? That is wrong, and I hope Parliament and opposition, we are glad the legal representative of NUP is here. I hope when Parliament reconvenes, President Museveni and his team will be brought to order. PDM is a taxpayers program, not NRM program. Children are put in funny t-shirts, everybody must wear yellow. I don't understand, but they've not been stoned by anyone. So when it comes to the question of voter education, of course the primary duty to conduct voter education is under Electoral Commission. That's Article 53 of the Constitution. Electoral Commission under Section 14 of the Electoral Commission Act can accredit partners to complement their efforts. Personally, I have not seen any work going on voter education, and if it
From
were,
the Electoral Commission.
Yes, if it were, even this program, you would be playing adverts of voter education.
We haven't received any.
Yes. So, but also the job of accreditation, I will speak for my organization. We did respond to the call by Electoral Commission. But increasing, I think Electoral Commission is partisan. When some of them watch such programs, and we are saying like NRM has violence in their DNA, then those people say, no, this Center for Constitutional Governance is toxic. So they are using partisan lenses to accredit or not accredit members, and it's very unfortunate. And I hope members of the Electoral Commission are listening. So neither have the civil society been enabled, and the Electoral Commission obviously is not conducting any sensible voter education. Not visible at all. Interesting
there. Major, when the president was seeking nomination at Chadondo, we saw a certain version of violence that has been,
you're asking me.
That has been often referred to as the DNA of the National Unity Platform. We saw it happen before our own eyes, and that violence was organized and commanded by one dam leader who happens to be, or appears to be, an operation commander when it comes to NRM campaign processes. This is an accusation that has been long-standing on sections of the opposition, including NUP, as we know, and then we saw it before our own eyes happening under the NRM on a day the president himself is being nominated. I ask you that question because I know you're very level-headed to answer and bring to book if you had the powers.
First of all, I don't know whether I'm aware about the incident, because there are two activities that took place. There was the picking of the nomination, and then there was the nomination.
No, the picking of the nomination papers.
Yes, that was the picking, the expression of interest.
The expression of interest.
Okay, that one I'm aware. Now, the expression of interest, what occurred is that there were youth dressed in NRM yellows. I think it is the one which allegedly robbed Akulu, the former director of CID.
Killed another person.
We have tried to look at this as a party. It had nothing to do with party mobilization. It would not work in our interest that NRM, after President Museveni has picked his nomination, youth, you go and loot. So what? Would it be in our best interest? No, it wouldn't. Now, we are increasingly saying that there's a trend of some people who do parallel mobilization when we are doing ours. There was an incident in Kololo when we had a similar thing. Around Hotel Africana, as NRM are coming, a group of similar youth did havoc. They actually killed the Japanese who had come to install artificial intelligence on all our security lights. And I think the project has stalled up to now. Because these Japanese had this laptop, when the youth opened the car and grabbed it, he came out to chase them. He was killed. Now a similar thing is here. Mere putting on t-shirts, yellow t-shirts, does not mean somebody's NRM. You very well know that even Uganda currency, 50,000 notes is forged, and they used to buy things, even dollars. So making t-shirts and somebody wearing is not tantamounting to NRM. But what would we benefit? And to accuse Damlira for organizing. Why would Damlira organize a looting? To punish the people of Uganda? To make NRM popular? To make NRM unpopular? What would you? So these gangs, I would invite security to take keen interest, especially now that it has happened twice. Because they seem to know NRM is doing something in Kololo. So they will pass through Hotel Africana this way. Then they waylay and do their activities. That is when they killed the Japanese. This one, they knew that we were busy and therefore we would be leaving the venue, and they did it. But it serves no NRM interest, whether Damlira in his security operatives or us as a party, that we organize use loot. For what? To bring the money to our account?
Sarah Bireete has a question for you, but please add to this one too. Why, given your theory of infiltration within the NRM, and there's a way you said it, that not everybody that puts on a yellow t-shirt is NRM. Why is it that there is finality when a person is putting on a red t-shirt? Why is there finality from the security agents? Those are rogue people, should be arrested, should be incarcerated, but somehow we must accommodate the fact that NRM can be infiltrated. Do you see a disconnect?
Can I add a question?
And if I may add mine.
Those are so.
Bring all the three. Yes. You bring all the three.
So my question is, we saw a public declaration by President Museveni appointing General Damlira, who also happens to be the head of crime intelligence, to work with ghetto youth and create an NRM ghetto structure. For me, my first condemnation is, how can a public official, a police officer, be used to go to the ghetto to do NRM structures in the ghetto? And secondly, this ghetto structure, we know who is heading it, Damlira. So if there is any due process, why don't you start with the head of crime intelligence?
Yes, mine is, Major is, at the beginning of the show, he said he prefers to be described as a lawyer, and he is. He knows that in law there's what we call circumstantial evidence. It's the one which leads to no other logical conclusion. Now, if you are from the nomination of Mr. Museveni, the NRM chairman, and youths rob people from the same venue, in a group, dressed in yellow, the only logical conclusion that these are NRM affiliated. You cannot say they are alleged. Just imagine you have people in red walking out of Kavuli in a group, and then you say, no, they may be, we are not sure. So the only logical conclusion is that, because one, they were coming from an NRM event, from the NRM office, dressed in yellow, in a group.
Would you even accept it if, for example, that happened and NUP said we were infiltrated by NRM who put on red T-shirts?
Okay,
Would you accept
the
that?
first question was
very quickly,
the finality. The finality, I think in the case of NUP, is that the red people who were arrested, say the Kalangala, the Kalangala arrest, none of them said they were not NUP. They said they were NUP, but only that they did not do a wrong. So no person in red has been arrested and he says, I'm not NUP. The issue is not that they were arrested in red and they said they are not NUP. The issue is that they have said they are NUP, but you are arresting us wrongfully or innocently. Two, on the issue of coming from the NRM, these people, we are not coming from NRM. They emerged from around here. They were not. You have no evidence to say they came from Kitchener. No. The violence erupted from here.
Major.
So they joined. They joined here.
Major.
Do you have evidence that they work from the party headquarters?
Yes.
Not at all.
Yes,
no,
I
no.
do.
The people were here. They were waiting for people who are coming. They just joined the people who are coming. The same thing they did in Hotel Africana. They waited for people who are coming from Kololo and they joined. Not at all. Okay? So,
Major,
you have a tough job.
no, but I'm telling the truth. The job is easy when you are telling the truth. Counsel, do you really know, you have evidence that they worked from the party?
Yes, they were arraigned in court for information. They spoke to the media. They were arraigned in court. They even mentioned who gave them 10K and food. They were arraigned in court. And like you allude, the new people, in this case, it's not them who are saying we are not NRM. It's you. You've brought the analogy of
Council Musisi, Council Retired Major, and Council Bireete. Let's go for a break. We'll be right back.
Because it's not them who are denying. It's Major who is denying that they're not NRM. They have not denied being NRM.
No.
All right, welcome back. The discussions are still as intense as they are on air. We are talking about the spates of violence as the nation gears up for the 2026 general election. We are not trying to accuse or find extreme fault. We're trying to find solutions and how best the country can emerge from this spectre of violence, especially in the holding of elections. Judge Musisi says the state is to blame for the spate of violence. Many times it's until the police actually comes in that violence occurs to the scale that it does. Retired Major Awich says the National Resistance Movement has absolutely no intention of sabotaging itself by allowing forces that exert violence on the masses, while Sarah Bireete has explicitly said the Electoral Commission is not in action in as far as civic education is concerned. All those are major issues up for discussion, but as we enter the final bend of the program, I'm going to ask that we deliberate on how best each actor and stakeholder can or should go in ensuring that there is no violence or elections are held in a more free and fair circumstances. Judge Musisi, I like to point the arc to you first because you are a protagonist in this whole thing. You are seeking, and we only know the battle that is going to be in Kira. You are up against Semuju Uganda, a man who has all of a sudden upped his campaign tactics on account of competition. That is bound to foment tension. On your part, there's a question I asked you earlier about interagency cooperation. I'm sure there must be teams that sit in order to not to allow things like Major Awich says, infiltration. There are people who are going to infiltrate the PFF, infiltrate NUP. How are you as actors holding up on that?
Actually, even infiltration per se in politics is not criminal. Neither is it wrong.
You're a typical lawyer.
Yeah.
Always.
Because every, to bring it home.
That's right.
Chris, even in the corporate world, it's good strategy to have an idea of what your opponent, your competitor is planning.
Espionage.
Yes. So infiltration per se is not criminal. Neither is it wrong. It's good politics. As long as it doesn't reach the criminal aspects is when you use violence, or when it reaches criminality. For instance, like stealing or theft. So every political camp has a right, and that is also good politics, to prepare, and also to cooperate depending on what levels of cooperation are needed. Mindful, of course, that in some constituencies, like the one you've cited, competition, because on multi-party politics, it's not just Chira, there are a number of other constituencies where competition is maybe amongst different political parties, not necessarily with NRM. Or there may even be some where strong competition is among NRM-leaning candidates. That could also be possible.
Flag bearer and independent.
Yes, flag bearer and independent. That could also be possible. Sometimes those frictions may be there in different constituencies. The only question that we want is for the neutral actors to be neutral. That any camp, if there is friction amongst the camp, one camp should be able to go and say, police, these people are doing, because police should only come in when politics has reached a criminal aspect. But short of that, let people do politics. Let people engage, let people do infiltration on the other's camp. That is good politics. Because we're in multi-party politics, it's competition. Here, competition reaches a criminal aspect. That is where the neutral actors, the state actors should come in. The problem comes that we grapple with is where even amongst those different facets we've said, where maybe different opposition parties are competing vigorously, or NRM-leaning candidates are both competing vigorously, and the state comes in on one side against the other. That is what is wrong. Because that means that the state machinery will be used unfairly and wrongly against the other by, for instance, maybe blocking the other's activities, lawful activities, to the advantage of the other, or even beating up, like we've already seen in some aspects. So the question should be, how far, how responsive will the state operatives be as neutral as possible, detached from politics? And that is the challenge that we are grappling with today.
Major Awich, let me ask a question on the posture of the security forces ahead of the election. Earlier, you spoke about the fact that the DNA of the army is heavily rooted in NRM ideology, so much so that many of the soldiers who retire always find themselves seeking to be political actors, but aligned to the national resistance movement on account of that. As we head into 2026, NRM enjoys tremendous support in many areas, where even if they do not seek the advantage of violence meted by the security forces, they could actually win the vote. Isn't that something that can be explored so that we lessen the incidence of violence? Because trust me, we are not posturing, we are not, these are things that happen and we know who the advantage, to whose advantage it is.
Of course, that should be. But first I want to reply to what he says, that infiltration is not bad until it goes to criminalities levels. I really don't know what he's saying. But I know for a fact that even in America, that he picks the example selectively. I don't know if we are aware about what is called, now referred to as, Watergate scandal. The Watergate scandal was like Noob trying to infiltrate and enter NRM, or vice versa. You know the parties in America, the Republican and the Democrat. And it led to a resignation, I think, of a president. Watergate scandal, whatever, I may not get the detail now, but Watergate scandal was an incident of parties, trying to spy on another.
No, the president was impeached for obstruction. President
Which is not good. For us as a party, as NRM, we are not interested about infiltrating anybody. If they are interested, that is up to them. But for us, we draw our work plan, we draw our strategy, we act on it. And we don't encourage our people to infiltrate. We want people to be in their space. And we know that is not good. So I want to say that about infiltration. Now, about what you have asked is that we are going to have many areas which are NRM dominated, including in northern Uganda. Recently, we sit at the Secretariat and we apportion ourselves areas of jurisdiction. I am in charge actually, for example. I was passing through Agago and I passed in a place called Wall. I found a group of people. I asked, what is it? They said, these are NRM people. And they told me, there's no any other party here. Therefore, we're going to have many areas, and therefore, definitely there shouldn't be any violence, especially if we manage to go through our primary. So, but to cool or to solve this, I want to come from a point of duty bearers. It is until we do an introspect to know that all of us are duty bearers. For example, to tell my party people, don't be involved in violence. He tells his party people, don't be in violence. Duty bearers like the state, they should know when they should come in. I am still saying that even our colleagues in the army should not panic because we are doing the work as a party. So let them stay and watch how we do it. So all duty bearers should know, do and retrospect, including us, the party leaders, to reign over our party members.
That's a good message. You would agree with, don't you, Sarah Bireete?
Of course, the ideal situation is that state agencies, state resources are not engaged in party politics. That's partisan conduct prohibited by all our laws, electoral and political laws. But the reverse also is true in our context. Afanda which did tell us that they have not moved away from the NRA, NRM context and the UPDF, which the Constitution presumes to be a national army.
He's an honest man.
Is indeed a military wing. Is indeed a military wing of the NRM.
Yeah.
So citizens need to know that that's a red spot, a red flag. We don't have a national army. We still have a NRA. So that's really very worrying. And the Kawempe election, and
you're distorting what I said.
There is no punishment for the violations from Kawempe. I've not heard of any.
And that is one of the disturbing aspects
very disturbing
about
as we
the
go
election. That when the state meets violence on its people, there is very little in terms of getting the officers to not pay but face the law. But when there is violence elsewhere, the state is hard on the citizens. Let's now go on ground.